the rapid floodwaters for 3 hours, losing consciousness numerous times, struggling to catch his breath. He thought this was the end of his journey. This is Dan Wilson's harrowing story of survival and a second chance at life. Inside that car is Dan Wilson.
I'm thankful to be here.
Dan left home for what he thought would be just another workday. That's when he came towards the wash at Little Morongo Road, an area he's crossed thousands of times, an area now unrecognizable.
The water was moving at a good speed, but it was very low, and it's nothing I haven't driven through before.
But in a blink of an eye, that all changed.
The wall of water and rocks and stuff that came at the very moment that I passed through the wash was, I can't even explain it. It just came with a crack, huge crack and crash, and washed my truck right off of the street like paper. So it had to have been a wave of mud and debris.
That's where the nightmare began, gripping his steering wheel for the next 2 miles.
I was traveling backwards. At no point in time was I in a forward position. It was all backwards. I know this area pretty well, and I'm thinking, okay, at some point, you know, the terrain is going to widen, and I'm just going to kind of get, you know, my vehicle's just going to kind of get pushed out, and the water's going to dissipate, but it just didn't. It was just got rougher and rougher, and as you can see, these rocks, you could feel stuff, you know, these impacts that were happening until the truck rested. So when my truck began to lift up in an angle, I started to kind of panic, and I'm thinking, okay, get out.
His car lodged in the middle of the current in the dead of night, where it still sits today, embedded in mud. But in that moment, Dan knew he had to take action.
If something breaks my window, the mud and water is going to come rushing in. So I struggled to get out of my seatbelt, broke my keys off the ring, got my backpack, stuck my hand out of the window, my backpack filled with, just zipped open and filled with mud and water, and just sucked me right out of the window.
Dan then traveled another 4 miles with nothing but the clothes on his back.
I was unconscious multiple times through the travel after that. There were so many tide pools, like whirlpools everywhere, and currents, ripping currents everywhere, that after a while, once it pulled you under, I started to time it. So I would just hold my breath and get ready for the next time that you'd go under. One thing that scared me is I kept picturing my wife and my daughter looking for me with flashlights, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I gotta get home.
That's when he started grasping for his life.
Started to kind of do a waving motion, hoping that I would get closer to the edge. I felt trees, and I pulled myself onto the bank by the tree branches. Once I got onto the bank down by the railroad tracks closer to Gene Autry overpass, and I stood on the banks, I noticed, I thought it was over, but then I noticed the water was breaking the banks again from the initial wash. I had to get up to the overpass as fast as I could. It took me about 25 minutes. Just walked up to the first car I seen, completely just emotionally done.
And that's when he found his guardian angel.
The first car didn't help me. The second Hispanic gentleman that was in his truck gave me his work clothes. As I was talking to him, this nice lady with 2 children in her car, she just opened her door and said, get in.
He says he hopes this story reminds people the importance of helping others in need. And once Dan arrived home and finally met eyes with his wife, he fell to his knees, grasping onto her, thankful for another chance. Live in studio, I'm Carmela Karcher. Back to you.